Like I said in the content pillar video, for the most part, there should be at least two main sections on your website that will drive the traffic. Obviously, the bigger your site, the more content pillars you can pivot into. So the two very basic examples of this are your product or services pages or your fresh content section. Remember that the service page or your product page are your money pages, and this is the page that will directly improve your sales. And the second section is where that fresh content gets housed. So if you're getting a little bit confused by the word fresh, think of it as an area of your site that offers value and acts as a resource for your users. It's not where you do the hard sell, it's where you build that trust. The resource section should be it shouldn't be static web pages, but rather pages that get updated on a regular basis. So it gives you a reason to share the content with your network, which could either be email, social media, or even maybe Google AdWords. So this resource type content captures a broader audience, and its main role is to move the visitor down that sales funnel towards your money pages. So generally speaking, the more competition you have in your industry, the more time you need to invest in this content. You need a reason to talk on social media, and having that fresh, valuable content gives you an excuse to do so. And remember, the more credible your content, the more trust you earn, and the more trust you have, the more sales you will make, which ultimately increases your revenue. One misconception that is often made in the industry, and that is often it's an old school SEO legacy issue, is that the more competition you have, the more content you need. This is not true in our minds. If you picked up earlier, I said the more competition you have, the more time you need to spend on content. So that could mean instead of spending, say, 5 hours producing 3 pieces of content, you might need to be spending, say, 10 hours producing only 1 piece of content. And that's by no means an over-exaggeration, because when you start this content journey, you need to be able to do the research, which takes time. There's design and the understanding of good content flow within an article. And then there's also the tone and the grammar that you need to think about. And remember, in the previous week, we spent time on keyword and content research. So this is where it starts coming into its own. So understanding the type of content that will be searched for together with the type of content that gets shared socially is really important to grasp from the outset. Okay, so how does this all influence URL structure? Here are the 3 pressure points that keep us focused on developing sound URL structures. The first pressure point: you need to have a thorough, well-researched keyword framework, which will form your content pillars. And you need to split these content pillars up into sections: your money pages and the article section where you build that trust. Remember, we did introduce that thinking within the sitemap section earlier in the course. The second pressure point: don't create competing content. So by this I mean, don't create content that targets the same keyword or key phrase. The example I've used here is 10 holiday destinations this winter 2016. And 8 vacation destinations this winter 2017. So notice that subtle change in URL, but ultimately both articles are targeting the keywords holiday destinations winter. Google's algorithm is now clever enough to associate holiday with vacation. We've seen this also in a web growth context. The word internet and online mean the same thing. We rank for both keywords when attached to the phrase marketing courses. So remember, it comes down to the intent of the user. So whether I search for holiday or vacation, the user is still searching for destinations in winter. The US use vacation, but the rest of the English-speaking world use holiday. Obviously, Google doesn't get these similar words 100% right all the time, but my method has always been to optimize to where Google's algorithm is going, not where Google is currently. And Google has definitely made it clear that this is where they want to go to. It's called semantic search. So this way you always maintain a competitive edge over your competitors. So getting back to the URL structure, you have now created 2 competing pieces of content which have a number of problems that will follow. Firstly, Google doesn't know which is more relevant. These two articles are now cannibalizing each other. And then secondly, you've wasted time creating an additional article when you could have just updated that original piece. And thirdly, when placing internal links back to an article, you now have to decide which of the two to link to, which then siphons the page authority across two articles. And the link juice has now been spread too thinly, which doesn't pack that punch that it should, ultimately lessening the value of both pages. Which then leads me to the third pressure point: keep URL keywords focused, but don't be spammy. Less is more. Using the same example, the correct URL structure should be timeless and allow for continuous updating. If you can help it, don't use stop words like and, at, the, etc. These just decrease the focus on the keywords that you want to rank for. And don't also use years. You possibly could use months in very specific occasions. An example would be Durban July. That's a famous annual horse race here in South Africa. So if it's an event which is the same time of the year every year, then I reckon it's possibly a good opportunity to insert the month or season to make it more niche, but I don't think it's a good idea to use the year. Our approach to all content starts with URL structure. It helps SEO, your paid advertising, even social media, and ultimately provides the foundation for good content strategy. It also helps the pocket because you're investing in content that can be repurposed over time. The lifespan of each article then becomes timeless, and the data you get around each article becomes paramount, which will hopefully unlock all sorts of other article opportunities and perhaps an opportunity to pivot into another product or service.